welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon. This back here, that's Bernard. He's my October co-host, and today we're going to be talking about The Haunting of Bly Manor, the new series from Mike Flanagan that just went up on Netflix. 2 years ago, I put up a review for The Haunting of Hill House, which was his first installment of his The Haunting of series. And what I loved about that was I kind of had no idea what to expect. I knew I liked Mike Flanagan, but I had just no idea what to expect this series. So we kind of went in with no expectations, and it absolutely blew me away. Like I said, I filmed a review. I'll link it down in the box below if you want to go and check it out. Now we've waited 2 long years, and we got the second installment, Bly Manor. This season is based on the work of Henry James, The Turn of the Screw being one, but it also takes from a few of his other stories. And this time was a little different going in because you knew what Mike Flanagan could do with a series like this. And so I feel like the pressure must have been very great for him, knowing how much people loved Hill House. Now we're visiting a whole new group of people in a whole new house, and it must have been stressful for him. But I thought it was great, and we'll talk about that. I'll give a little bit of a brief synopsis of the show for people who haven't seen it, and I'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers, because we will talk about the spoilers a bit as well. So Bly Manor is about a house in the English countryside, a manor that for years has been lived in by different families. When we visit it, 2 children live there with their au pair and a housekeeper and a cook, and they live there in the house where they lived with their parents before their parents passed away. After their parents died, they were left to their uncle, and he just sort of hired staff to keep them at the house, and he stayed in London. He stayed away from the house. And right off the bat, you really get the feeling that he doesn't visit often because the kids seem to really miss him. So the story is about these children, the au pair who gets hired to go and live at the house, the housekeeper, and the cook. And it's their stories. And it starts off right at the very beginning. You can tell that a wedding's happening, and a woman wants to tell a story to the people who are there, and she tells them that it's a ghost story. And right at the very beginning, since it is a wedding setting, she says something to the effect of, love is deciding that the work of loving someone is worth the pain of losing them. I loved that. I love that line because that's so very true. And so from there, we set off on this story. I would recommend it for anyone who loves a good, well-told story. It's not too scary. I call Mike Flanagan's brand of movie making subtle horror because it's very subtle. He doesn't rely on the cheap thrills of jump scares. You're never like, ugh. Because even when something that could be considered unsettling or alarming appears on the screen, there's never that music that accompanies it that makes you jump. It's just laid out before you for you to process. And I appreciate that so much. I find too, the older I get, the less I can handle the jump scares. So if that sounds like something you would like, definitely check it out. So we're gonna move on now to the spoilers. So if you haven't seen it and you want to, now is the time to click away. Okay. So right off the bat, I started trying to guess who was a ghost, who was already dead. And pretty much from the first episode, I called Hannah, that Hannah was a part of the house, a part of the ghost part of the house, because she would never eat or drink, and that set me off right away. I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved how Hill House was kind of the story of the living, and then Bly Manor is kind of the story of the dead. Different people, different houses, obviously, but yeah, the Hill House kind of really focused more on the living, and then Bly Manor focused more on the dead, you know? And I loved that. It's also definitely a love story. I loved seeing the story between Danny and Jamie develop. I actually read something very interesting in that originally Mike Flanagan had cast Jackson Oliver Cohen. No, Oliver Cohen Jackson. I think it's Oliver Cohen. He'd originally cast Oliver Cohen Jackson, who played Luke in season 1 and who played Peter in season 2. He had originally cast him as the gardener. But Netflix came back with notes saying that they thought it would be too strange since in Hill House they played twins. So Netflix was like, I don't think people are going to like seeing them as love interests in this season, which, I mean, I wouldn't have found that weird. I know that those are actors playing different characters, but those were Netflix's notes, I guess. So he got moved to the Peter character, which he was fantastic for. And then that lady got cast as Jamie the gardener. So I thought that was an interesting shift in dynamic. I loved learning the history of the house, the history of the characters when we finally get that episode. Episode 5 is Hannah's episode where we find out what... Well, first of all, we get the confirmation that she is, in fact, a ghost in the house. And then we learn what happened to her, and that's just such a unsettling episode between the time jumps and the tension of not knowing what we're gonna find. Like, we know we're gonna find something out that's very sad and very terrible, but not knowing what it is, just that tension was a lot. It seems like Mike Flanagan likes to use those 5th episodes in these series to really just put in the hard hitters, because episode 5, I believe, of Hill House was the Bent Neck Lady episode, where the reveal is that Nell is the bent neck lady and she has been effectively haunting herself her whole life. That episode left me in tears. Hannah's episode in BLY MANOR left me in tears. I loved when we got to episode 8 and we got the history of the house. It was lovely seeing Kate Segal come back. She was Theo in Hill House, and she was the character that got to give us the full history of the house. That was absolutely heartbreaking, learning what happened to her and how she ends up being the Lady of the Lake. That's just heartbreaking. At first, so my husband and I, when we were watching it, we kind of kept going back and forth, like which of the sisters was going to be the Lady of the Lake. And then I was like, no, it's fine. They're bringing the trunk with them when they were leaving. And then, well, they didn't. They ended up throwing it in the lake. And then just her everyday ritual of sleep, wake, walk, forget. Sleep, wake, walk, forget. And then we get the reasoning behind why all of the other ghosts in the house, their features began to disappear over time. I thought that was a very interesting way to do it. Then, of course, there were the 2 kids. Are kids never not creepy in scary shows or movies? I don't think so. I think there's always that creepy edge to them, but like, what fantastic little actors they were. Miles was amazing, especially in the scenes when Peter is inside Miles, when he's possessed him, and just the change, the way that the little kid actor made the change, so you could very quickly tell without having to be shown that it was Peter inside of him. I thought that was great. When he gave that whole monologue to Hannah before he pushes her in the well, that was so good. The little girl that plays Flora, she was so good. I saw on Twitter some people complaining about the accents of some of the actors, like Henry Thomas. He's back as a character named Henry, and his accent was a little too try-hard at times, and people didn't like the storyteller's accent. But other than that, I mean, I thought they were great. I thought Peter's Scottish accent was really good. At first, when we first met him, it was a little off-putting because I wasn't expecting him to have a Scottish accent. And a few of the things I was like, what did he say? But then as time went on and we got more accustomed to the accent, it was much easier to pick out. He's great. Victoria Pedretti, she's great. The whole cast is so good. And then that final episode when we find out that the storyteller all along has been the gardener. telling the story of how, you know, her and Danny finally were able to leave BLY Manor and go and live a life for, you know, 10 plus years before the house called her back. She couldn't. I feel like what happened was at one point Danny wakes up in the middle of the night and she's kind of got her hands around Jamie's throat, and that scares her so bad that she knows she can't put off going back to the house and giving herself to the Lady of the Lake, because we had seen earlier in the episode that in saying the words, you, me, us, and getting the lady to not take Flora with her into the bottom of the lake, she did that by giving herself as a vessel to the lady. And it was just very sad. And then when we get to see all the surviving members dancing at the wedding that turns out to be Flora's wedding, and we get to see Flora and Miles and Owen again, and Henry. That was lovely. And then the very final scene, I mean, when the show ended, I was just sobbing like my heart had been broken. It was very painful. It just got me right in the feelings. It was great. It was great. It's different, of course, than Hill House. It's a different story. It's a different feel. In some ways, it's actually a lot darker than Hill House was, but also it's a beautiful love story, and I would definitely recommend it. 2 thumbs up. Would recommend 5 stars. The cast, fantastic. The new members, because of course it's an anthology series, so a lot of the actors from the first season are in the second season just playing different characters, but we do have some new additions. The actor who played Owen was amazing. I hope we get to see him again in future seasons. And the woman who played Hannah, she was outstanding. The woman who played Rebecca, again, fantastic. So it was nice to see new faces, but also see, you know, the old favorites. And yeah, it was great. I've been waiting for 2 years. I've been saying, I don't know, once a month for 2 years, like, when are we getting more The Haunting of? When? And then once we got the date, I was like, oh my God, counting down the days. And I was not disappointed in the slightest. And we devoured it over the course of 2 nights. And it was just great, in my opinion. And I love Mike Flanagan. He's such an interesting filmmaker to me. And I find the way that he tackles scary stories with such heart, it's fantastic, and it's something that's not often done in that genre. So yeah, there you go, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having a great weekend. It's Thanksgiving here in Canada, so happy Thanksgiving to any Canadians that are watching. And please do leave your thoughts in the comment box below. Let me know if you've seen the show, what you thought of it, and I will see you guys soon with another vlog. Bye.